All right, everyone. Steve Metrics here of Db8 Sports. Your boy DJ TRIGGS. He'll be joining us here shortly. But we're coming back. First week of the wild card round of the NFL playoffs is in the books. And we're definitely going deep into that today. So we got more of that going on today. We got some NBA talk. And we also got some interesting NFL movement going on amongst a lot of NFL head coaches. So it's been kind of quiet since the end of the season, but now that we're getting into the playoffs, there's been some weird movement amongst some of the teams that are in it and some of the teams that aren't in it. So really different offseason than what we're traditionally used to with coaches getting terminated and new coaches getting hired. Very interesting process that's occurring this year for at least the first time that I've seen in quite a while. So some very interesting stuff going on there and all that, and some divisional picks that we'll be talking about later today as well with what's going on with this next round of the playoffs. So got a lot of stuff to pack into tonight's show. So yeah, let's go right into it. And I think the biggest thing that's been going on is if we look at how the first round of the playoffs went, I think it's very interesting to see that it is going on in a way where pretty much the team with a better quarterback truly prevailed in this first round of the playoffs. So if we bring up the scores from the first round of the playoffs, honestly, I know a lot of people were looking to say that, hey, Cleveland is a really good football team. They have this great defense. Joe Flacco's been playing out of his mind. But honestly, to me, when I look at it, I looked at almost Cleveland as almost a lesser version of the team that maybe about a month ago the Houston Texans came across in the Cincinnati Bengals. That was a team that was playing some pretty good defense, to be honest. But offensively, they are loaded. When you have a healthy Joe Burrow, a healthy Jamar Chase, a pretty good Joe Mixon, even some tight end play into that offense, Cincinnati they were starting to cook. They were starting to look like they were one of the better teams in that entire AFC conference and probably on track to at least give the Ravens a push for that division of the AFC North. Granted, guys got hurt, kind of fell apart. It was what it was. But looking at that game and looking at that team, to me, presented that Cleveland, today's Cleveland Browns, are kind of a lesser version of what I saw of that Cincinnati Bengal team a month ago. So with that, I felt that if CJ Stroud can knock off Joe Burrow head-to-head, especially in Cincinnati, CJ Stroud can take care of that at home against a backup quarterback in Joe Flacco. For as good as he's playing, it's still a backup quarterback. You still have some different things going on with that offense, and that defense can be kind of hit and miss, whether it's on the road or at home. There's times where they can be totally stout against the run and times where they can be on the road and guys go right through them. So I wasn't completely sold that Cleveland should be the better team than the Texans. So I liked what I saw there. And to me, we'll talk about this some more, but CJ Stroud, to me, at this point, is one of the top two, and yes, only top two quarterbacks in the entire NFL. If I have my pick of any quarterback that I want, especially for fantasy, CJ Stroud is in the top two already as a rookie. So I love seeing that, and I got to go with that kind of quarterback for that matchup. You go down to the Dolphins-Chiefs, and yeah, it's pretty obvious when you take a hot weather team and put them in the fourth coldest game ever, they're probably going to be checked out. It doesn't help them much either that they are missing 5 key components of that defense. And even then, that's a defense that is incredibly sketchy in its secondary as well. So you got a lot of bad things going on with that Miami Dolphins team. And it is what it is. But I just thought that everything there presented itself in a way that truly the better quarterback in that matchup is clearly Patrick Mahomes. And Tua Tagovailoa, yes, you have some nice regular season stats, but when it comes to playing in the clutch, when you need to rely on other targets outside of Tyreek Hill and go more off script, you're not going to be making as good of plays as a guy like Patrick Mahomes. You're just not. So to me, Patrick Mahomes is clearly the better quarterback in that matchup, which is why I would definitely pick the Chiefs, and we did. So those games went the way we thought they would go. And then going into those NFC games that were played on Sunday, you had Jordan Love and the Packers against Dak Prescott and the Cowboys, and the world wanted to pick Dallas. Everything with them, just the way they've played at home, undefeated at home all season long, a great secondary, had some absolute blowouts against certain teams throughout the season, but just the way they're built, they're just not built in a way that they can have diverse success on offense. Everything through that team, for as good as they are, being a 12-5 football team, everything with them goes to one player in the air, in the slot, and that's CeeDee Lamb. That guy is an excellent, unbelievable receiver. It's awesome seeing the growth and progression that guy is making, especially in the past when he had even fewer targets to take the attention off him. It is getting better, but this is clearly a team that on offense still has strides to make. They still are not at the likes of the San Francisco 49ers. And even in this game, clearly on offense, Jordan Love and the Packers are just better. It's a better quarterback with way more weapons on offense than what Dallas has. Dallas truly only has CeeDee Lamb. Tony Pollard is a nice running back, but throughout the regular season, he's shown that he is not an absolute bell cow compared to the other running backs that we've seen, whether it's Aaron Jones, Christian McCaffrey, Alvin Kamara, the Miami Dolphin running backs, regardless of which one is starting. That's the kind of productivity that we want to see out of a running back that's truly a weapon that we're not getting out of Tony Pollard. So I can't really put him there. I guess another really solid component on that Dallas Cowboy offense would be that Jake Ferguson from our state of Wisconsin playing tight end for the Dallas Cowboys. But it's just not enough. When it comes to a tight end that's really good, you're more of a complementary piece unless you are a guy like a Travis Kelce or a TJ Hawkinson or the Ravens tight ends. That's when you really become a weapon in your own right and really take the offense in a totally new direction. A guy like Jake Ferguson is great, but he needs other pieces to deflect that attention off him so he truly makes the most out of his mismatches. So that's why I really only feel Dallas has truly one weapon on offense outside of the quarterback position, whereas we're looking at Green Bay right now, they probably have at least three. If we look at them with Jaden Reed, Romeo Doubs, Aaron Jones, those are three solid weapons. And then you have your complementary tight end doing what they do. But Jordan Love is making things happen by his own right. And just truly, when it comes to being a quarterback, he is absolutely a better quarterback than Dak Prescott is right now. That is a fact. Look at the final stretch of the regular season. He is just more poised, more confident, more athletic, and more comfortable under pressure than Dak Prescott is, who has a better offensive line, has more time in the pocket, has more experience making his progressions, and he is still playing kind of strangled and kind of under duress in a way with himself. Whereas a guy like Jordan Love, who's under pressure, less time in the pocket, more pressure coming at him as well, is making better progressions, more progressions, and better throws, and even doing some crazier stuff, whether it's a pump fake or scoring touchdowns without his feet on the ground. That's the kind of quarterback play that matters, and that's what matters when it comes to the bright lights and having those playoff moments where you truly define who you are as a player. when really, I mean, we look at the game where Dak Prescott was not, last season against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, a team that wasn't that great. Other than that, he's looking at about a 1-5 record. So it's just not the greatest thing that we're seeing there out of Dak Prescott to start. Not to start, but to finish the season. So again, that's the third game we're looking at where the better quarterback truly prevails. This is the one game now that we'll go to that, to me, you actually had a quarterback matchup that to me was pretty even, pretty straightforward. When you look at both Jared Goff and Matt Stafford, they were traded for each other. They pretty much represent the same ability at a quarterback position. These are guys who can hang huge yardage, play really fast indoors, and if you give them really strong weapons around them, they can truly succeed. And that happened in this game. Had a few weird things happen at the end of the game. LA definitely had a few guys get banged up, but to me too, this was probably one of the more obvious games where a team that had very little resistance on defense, it showed significantly. So to me, when I look at this game, this is probably the one game where I think the better quarterback actually lost, but still just overall sense of how this game played out. I really see a very even matchup between Jared Goff and Matt Stafford. It was what it was, a very tight game. I did like the Rams. They were my pick out of the NFC to go to the Super Bowl. It is what it is. But truly, Detroit showed that they have more weapons on offense, and that really made the difference. So with that, let me check here. But yeah, there it is. And let's bring him back to the big stage. It's yo boy, DJ TRIGGS. Uh-oh.
I don't.
He's back in the bunker, and he's got the Blair Witch action going on.
Basically, I'm now moving everything sideways.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, my computer's completely. I think I need a new computer.
Oh.
It's gone.
Oh man, it's gone forever. But he's here. He's got the Blair Witch thing going on. I love it, and that's no debate.
I don't know what I'm doing anymore.
Yeah, hey, that's okay. We're winging it. We're a bootstrap production for the moment, building this up from literally from your basement to my basement, and there it is. That's no debate.
This works. I just makeshifted a thing and put it together with another thing, and now my phone is sitting on another thing.
Nice. Hey, when it comes to what I got here in my basement, people can't see it, but I definitely have a computer laptop on top of two containers on top of a bar stool, and the whole microphone setup is on top of a cushion, on top of a tote, on top of two boxes. So I'm there, man. I definitely know what it's like.
Well, I just threw you on the floor, so
hey, sometimes you gotta sometimes it become you get that kind of feeling on a late night on a Tuesday, and there it is.
I don't know what's happening.
Yeah, it's okay.
This is the best I got. I have a phone holder somewhere, like a selfie stick or something. Maybe I can pull out the selfie stick.
Oh yeah. I gotcha. Yeah, that helps, man. Definitely, the selfie stick can make it happen, and there you go now. So yeah, that's how it's gonna work, you know.
This is good. I found an old like Wii U holder, and I just propped it up on the Wii U. So now we have like a stand sort of thing and a backup stand.
Nice. A stand and a backup stand. That's how you do it, man. That's no debate.
Yeah, that's true. I see you got your Raiders on. You're rocking the whole Raiders set.
I am, man. Yeah, couple weeks ago, I went online and ordered the hat that I really liked back when I saw our offensive coordinator Bo Hardegray. I saw him sport it, and then I saw Jimmy Garoppolo sport it. It's a really cool hat. It's got a lot of social justice words on it. Some really cool things going on with it. I loved what I saw in the sweatshirts of the coaches and of Antonio Pierce back when. So really cool hat. Had to get it. It finally arrived, I want to say last week, and it's really cool. It's one of the coolest Raider hats I've seen, and totally had to get it. Some pretty cool good news going on too with my Raiders. Yeah, so I kind of felt like, hey, despite there being a lot of weird stuff going on in the NFL, especially with the coaches, especially with some of these teams that are just having gut-wrenching ends to the end of their season, I do like the positive news that I've kind of been hearing lately with my Raiders.
Yeah, AP might take over. Is it official, or like do they have to like bring in a couple people just to be nice about it?
Yeah, that's pretty much how it's going to go. You still have to do the vetting process. I think this year they've updated the Rooney Rule to having to interview two minority coaches beyond the coach, whether they're an interim coach or whoever you're interviewing. So in total, you have to have three total coaches to get interviewed before you give the job to anyone. So that's a newer rule that's been updated. It used to be one, now it's two. So I like that. I like the direction they're going. But it's been an interesting last few days. There was also the news that if Antonio Pierce is not the head coach, Max Crosby will demand a trade to whatever team Antonio Pierce is hired by. There have been talks about the Tennessee Titans wanting to interview him. I've heard some rumblings about the Washington Commanders with Antonio Pierce. But this is a real positive step in the right direction for him. I know yesterday with MLK Day, he was wearing a Raiders starter jacket, so I love seeing that. Good news there. And then the other news that has been linked with this coaching staff is that Antonio Pierce wants Cliff Kingsbury to be the new offensive coordinator. And Bo Hardegray did a real good job with the team. So it would be interesting to see where Bo would go on to after being on the staff for the season. But if Cliff Kingsbury comes to the Raiders, then I think this goes back all the way to the reports we've been hearing probably about within the last month that the Raiders are willing to deal multiple first and second round picks to move all the way up to one to select Caleb Williams.
Yeah, it's so weird. Like I've been doing a lot of research on that guy, and
Okay.
like I like him. Don't get me wrong, but
Yeah.
I'm hearing so many like different crazy things about him. Like I heard there was a point where he didn't want to get drafted by the Bears.
Yep.
Um, I heard a point where um, he wasn't going to declare for the draft if
Wow.
certain teams moved up to get him. That's why,
Yeah.
if you notice, he he literally he took until the exact last day, like last hour, to declare for the draft. When like the whole world thought he was already selecting that he was going to the draft this year.
Yes.
So yeah,
Yes.
that was a little weird. I didn't like that. I
Yep.
heard his dad, and I mean this is just grumblings, but I've heard his dad is bad as LeVar Ball. I think you said that last week, and then I kind of
Yep.
read some things about his dad. Like
Yep.
I'm like, wow, you have this many problems, and you're not even in the NFL. Like I would kind of take a step back. And then on top of that, I was kind of doing some research about, trading up for number one picks and quarterbacks.
Sure.
Uh, it doesn't really work out like ever.
Oh, wow.
Um,
Eh, Okay.
yeah, it's kind of really bad actually.
Well, I mean, I think the one that sticks out in a lot of people's mind is probably the swap that occurred back when for Drew Brees and Eli Manning, correct?
Philip Rivers, Eli Manning.
Oh, Philip Rivers and Eli Manning. Yeah, my bad. Wrong Charger quarterback. But yeah, that is definitely the one to me that sticks out the most.
Yeah, I mean there's been some like pretty big trades to move up for quarterback, and it like never ever worked. It's kind of
Interesting.
weird.
Yeah, that is kind of weird. It to me though, it is absolutely the most critical thing that has to happen for our organization is to move up and solidify that quarterback. Uh, we got good things working for us throughout our team, but clearly we are missing at quarterback. We do that, I think that really cleans things up. I mean, are we going to get straight up a CJ Stroud or a Jordan Love right out of the gates? Ugh, I don't know. Could easily have some growing pains. Could be like a Jalen Hurts kind of situation. I could definitely see that, but it's definitely the move that has to happen. I think with that, you really secure things on the coaching end, but then you're also securing things on the player spectrum as well by being able to possibly retain a incredible talent like Devonte Adams. I think Devonte wants to know that, oh, I can play on a team that has a phenomenal quarterback, or at least a quarterback that's trending in the right direction. I think that's what it takes to hold on to key players like that.
Yeah, it. I mean, of course, moves like that have to be made, but like I don't know, like number one picks are not as good as we think. Especially like quarterbacks. Like um, I can't remember who I was hearing say this, but like um, if you look at quarterbacks, like okay, C.J. Stroud wasn't picked first, Jordan Love not picked first. Patrick Mahomes was like the second or third quarterback. Um,
Josh Allen.
Josh Allen was like what second or third?
Yeah. Lamar Jackson was the end of the
Into
first
the
round.
round. Yeah,
He
like
and if the Ravens don't trade up, then Lamar Jackson would be the beginning of the second round.
yeah, and it's like that. That's kind of just mind blowing to me that it's just like none of these guys that are really really good are the number one quarterback taken off the board. Um,
Yeah.
and like I said, look at C.J. Stroud and Bryce Young. Like that's that is wild.
Yeah, it is wild. And to me, it was mind blowing too that whole time because for pretty much a month and maybe a little bit of change, we were hearing that CJ Stroud's the guy. Carolina is going to take Stroud. And to everyone, it made a ton of sense. I mean, look at the guy. The guy's tall, the guy has really strong measurables. But then look at how the guy plays. Even though he lost, the way he played against Georgia, it was awesome in that playoff game. So the guy is able to step up and basically make it that he's in a position that he is going to compete at the highest level. So I really enjoyed seeing CJ Stroud really burst out onto the scene and really start taking care of business. Where a guy like Bryce Young, who's ahead of him, who didn't have, I mean, you can arguably say actually had more talent around him to start the season, did not do anything close to the ability that CJ Stroud did.
Yeah, and like so that's why I'm kind of like really just I want to take a step back. I mean, even like the NBA, MLB, like first number one overall picks, they're not doing too hot. I mean, Wembanyama doing his thing, but like what does he do when there's a team around him? Like I don't know. It's just it's weird. Like number one picks are not as you know surefire as we'd like to think they are. But
Right.
you always hear about all these like, oh, we're gonna put this package together to move up, or this package together to move up. or we're trading our number one pick for this guy. And it's like, how often does that hit?
Yeah, and to me, it's more of a sign of desperation for various franchises because they don't have the structure built around them to succeed, and it is why they are picking so high, whether it's NBA or NFL. Well, it's because the team surrounding them is not that great. Just look at the highly touted draft picks at quarterback for the New York Jets. They've whiffed on both of them. They've whiffed on Sam Darnold. They've whiffed on Zach Wilson. Now they're relying on a 40-year-old decrepit Aaron Rodgers, and that's not going so hot.
I mean, they whiffed on Mark Sanchez. Like,
Hey,
they've missed a lot.
they have. Sanchez took him to an AFC Championship game, or was it two?
I mean, I don't think it was because of him though.
True, but I mean, he definitely had his good string for as short as it was. After that, it really fell flat. But he was a solid quarterback for a short little stretch. I mean, it wasn't a highly valued pick in my opinion, but the guy did give you some good production. But he had a really solid team around him, and I mean, we look at the Jets of today, and they have that solid defense, but they have nothing else. They have no offensive line. They have one weapon at a wide receiver. You have a running back core that you brought in a free agent who basically demanded to be released from the team, and your other running back is coming off a torn ACL. So you got a lot of things that when it comes to the offensive side of the ball for the Jets that is just loaded with question marks.
Yeah, the Jets are. It's so strange to me that like you never hear about scouts getting fired or
Yes.
like scouts having good like credibility. And it's like, man, some of these teams miss every year. I mean, like
Yeah.
Jets, Carolina, like Arizona, just
Yep.
the Giants.
Yeah,
It,
the Giants are a big one for sure.
it I mean, I know I have my like beef with the Packers and how they draft, but like at
Oh, they
least some of
crushed it.
their later picks hit really well. First
Yeah,
round, sometimes.
right. But even this year really showed, and basically the last 2 years, you can really make the case that Green Bay's really figuring it out, and they're positioning themselves in a way that yes, they're going to have to pay Jordan Love, but they can really kick the can on the other player positions for pretty much the next 3 to 4-ish kind of years with some of these guys. So Green Bay is going to be in a great position that you're really only paying your quarterback, and then you can just build money to spend it on the offensive line, spend it on defense, and really start to attract certain players to show up to your team who are possibly looking to get paid. And Green Bay will have that flexibility and availability to make those paychecks possible.
Yeah. Uh, so that's a fun transition.
It is.
What do you think? What do you think Jordan Love gets on the as the bag goes?
Right. So I was it was interesting because I was hearing this today actually about a different quarterback in Baker Mayfield. And I brought this article up to you the other day that when you look at NFL Super Bowl winning quarterbacks, they basically have all averaged at the highest end. They've been averaging 10% of your team's salary cap. And when we look at today's NFL salary cap, it's almost at $250 million. So for annual salaries. So if that's the case, then really your highest end quarterbacks on Super Bowl winning caliber teams should be getting paid around 25 million. And we know today's quarterbacks that are at the highest end, the ones that we think are all the best quote unquote quarterbacks in the NFL, they're making close to 50. I even heard Dak Prescott next year is on the hook to make 60 million. That is gut wrenching if you're a Dallas Cowboy. So when I look at a guy like Jordan Love, I mean, if I'm Green Bay, I would probably push him if I can get something with like maybe 4 years. It's so weird because like you want to pay him kind of low, but you want to make it kind of a longer contract because when the contract is up, then you're going to re-up it again, and at that point, then you're competing against the other positional players that you'll have to pay at that point, and you really got to come to terms with your quarterback and say, hey, do you want the money or do you want championships? And when it came to a guy like Tom Brady, he chose the championships, and he chose to make less because he knew he could make more money in endorsements and whatnot. And I think that's what it's going to take. And maybe in the short term, he agrees to maybe like a 4 to 5 year, 40 million annual kind of contract. I could see that. But I would hope afterwards he scales it down because his endorsements at that point are going to be through the roof. I truly think this is the guy who moving forward is going to be the face of State Farm commercials. I mean, I even just saw a commercial today with Chris Paul basically saying, I'm out. He basically showed up every jersey for every NBA team that he played for a family that's looking to move and has all these different moving places. Chris Paul basically said, yep, I've been in all these cities. I'm done. And it kind of feels like that baton's being passed to another athlete. We haven't seen Aaron Rodgers in a State Farm commercial forever. So really the only guy who's really manning State Farm right now is Patrick Mahomes. And I have my concerns with Mahomes. We'll see how much longer he's truly in the league. But I think that new up and coming, exciting kind of athlete, well, there's two of them. There's Jordan Love and there's CJ Stroud. And one of those guys, to me, is really going to get that contract.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really have any words about how State Farm works. They're a weird one.
Yeah, it's pretty fun.
Yeah, Chris Paul getting his deal, and it. I mean, Chris Paul is cool and all, but I never really understood the appeal. Like, he was one of my favorite players coming out of college, but then
Yes.
like right away, I was just like, oh, this guy's not as good as I thought he was. Or
Yeah.
he's good, but he's like, uh, I'm trying to think of a nice way to put it. He's almost like a front runner that doesn't win.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, when you look at a guy like Chris Paul, he's the kind of guy who can really run your offense and operate it, but he's not going to be the LeBron James that puts the dagger in you. He's not the guy that is like Kobe Bryant in a way,
He's
you
a
know?
star, but not a
Yes,
superstar.
exactly. And that's solid to me. To me, it kind of reminds me like he's like an old school Greg Popovich San Antonio Spur that was never a San Antonio Spur.
See, I was thinking more like he's this era's John Stockton.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. Yeah, that's exactly what I see, and there's guys like that across various leagues. I mean, when I kind of think about that in the NFL term, the guy that I kind of think of, and unfortunately he went down this season, got hurt. To me, that kind of reminds me of like Nick Chubb in a way. When I see him with Cleveland, he's not a guy who's really talked about, but man, is he like the key component to that offense. And when he went down, they really had to scratch their heads and really work things around to make that offense operate in a totally different way.
Right. Yeah, that's true. Um, yeah, I don't know. Chris Paul's weird.
Oh yeah, yeah. But no, as a person, as a guy, I mean, I loved his commercials. I love his attitude. He's a pretty cool guy. So I like that kind of stuff. So pretty fun things going on there. But that's the thing I see is like with these young up and coming quarterbacks. I just saw a commercial today. I didn't see all of it, but I saw Trevor Lawrence has something going, but he's the kind of guy too where it's like, okay, cool, he's got whatever this new endorsement deal is, but when it comes to his play on the field, now to me it's getting sketchy. The guy's making weird decisions. People can call out the Philadelphia Eagles for falling flat and falling apart at the end of the season, but the same thing needs to be said about the Jacksonville Jaguars. That is a team that was competing for the number one overall seed in the AFC and had like a crazy, I don't know, 95 plus percentage of making the postseason for the last month of the season. And they completely failed to make the playoffs, where at that same point last season, they had a 3% chance. And then they go on that run. They beat the Tennessee Titans. They get in. They go down huge against the LA Chargers, and then they fight back to win that game. That's the kind of fight that we were expecting in Jacksonville this season, and it fell apart. I mean, to me, Trevor Lawrence is a guy that's basically getting flustered, and he's floundering around the pocket, as opposed to a guy like Jordan Love, who doesn't have a lot of time, has a ton of pressure, and is going up against really great secondaries and great schemes, and he's making the money throws in the moment.
Huh. Hey, random question.
Yep.
I can't see like any of the stuff on the screen. Do we have
Okay.
any comments or anything?
Yeah, we got James making some half-witty comments about my Raiders that we're not going to post. But yeah, that's about it.
They're making fun of the Raiders. That makes sense.
Yeah.
I just noticed that like my entire side of the screen, because I'm in from like, I don't know, left field. It's all black. So I was like, wait a minute. I
Uh-oh.
can't see anything over here.
Oh no.
But yeah, I don't know. I think I'm just like I don't know what I am on this screen. But um
It's the bunker.
yeah, the bunker, that's what we'll call it. But it's so weird. Like I know you were really high on Jacksonville and I was kind of like
I was.
iffy. Um like Jacksonville is so I think they hit their peak early last year, making the playoffs and everything just because
Yep.
all the other teams were down.
Right.
And this year, Indy was kind of like starting to hit their stride a little bit, especially when Taylor came back. Then, Houston exploded on the scene, and Tennessee was kind of down. Now getting a new coach, maybe King Henry's out of there, like so they're kind of in a transition. Jacksonville really should have hit this year, and they
Yeah.
didn't.
Yeah. And even more to your point that you just made, I really wonder, and that division was tight all the way to the end of the season, and it took a final game between the Texans and Colts, and then it took a upset by the Titans to beat the Jaguars to really solidify the Texans to win that division. I really wonder if Anthony Richardson doesn't go down early, do the Colts run away with that division?
I don't know. Minshew was not bad. Like he was doing some pretty solid work. Um, I'm actually very excited to see where he goes.
True. Yeah, I think he's the kind of guy who can definitely make the case to be a starting quarterback. But he's the kind of guy that I think he needs to go to the right coordinator and the right kind of system to make it work. So whether that's a guy like a Ben Johnson from Detroit or a Joe Brady from Buffalo, I don't know if Joe Brady's name is being brought up to be a head coach, but we'll see what happens with Buffalo's offense throughout this postseason. But I keep saying if Buffalo makes it far and deep into this playoffs, and if they go to the Super Bowl, I think there's going to be a serious push to Joe Brady becoming a head coach somewhere. And I was hearing this back before he took the Carolina job when he was with LSU and Joe Burrow, that he was coming to the NFL. And I would have thought at that point someone would have made the play for him to be a head coach, but it didn't work out when he was in Carolina. He would have been there a little bit with Baker Mayfield and a little bit of Sam Darnold, I want to say. So it didn't work out, but I've always thought the guy's a really smart offensive-minded coach with what he did at LSU, and now seeing what he's doing in Buffalo with Josh Allen after firing Ken Dorsey. I think he's really showing that he is one of those up and coming, brilliant offensive minded coaches. And that's the thing too. I know you pointed this out about Gardner Minshew. I've been less excited about Gardner Minshew than you have. But to me, the thing that's really driving that offense in Indy, and just look at the other side of the coin with what he took away from Philadelphia. Shane Steichen is a phenomenal offensive-minded head coach, and he is up there with the Kyle Shanahans and the Sean McVays of the world. Shane Steichen, to me, is truly the life and blood of that Indianapolis Colts offense. And you give him a guy next year like Anthony Richardson who comes back healthy, plays smarter, learns from his experiences from this past season, and grows more as a quarterback. I think the Indianapolis Colts are going to be a really, really scary team moving into next season.
Quite possibly. I'm not too worried about them. My brain just started to click here for a second.
Okay.
What if Gardner Minshew is the quarterback of the Las Vegas Raiders?
That's interesting too, because when I look at a guy like a Bo Hardegray, to me he's got that similarity of kind of how a game is called, whether it's a Shanahan or a Steichen or a McVay. There is definitely this brilliance to Hardegray that no one outside of myself, because I see the Raiders week in, week out, no one else is even fathoming to bring up. But I could definitely see him working in that style of offense that we have. And he would also be a great complement to Aiden O'Connell to kind of learn from in a way. I just think, though, at this point, we have to take a big swing at quarterback. And a guy like Gardner Minshew is not the guy that I know is going to be able to retain a high-end receiver like a Devontae Adams. In order for us to hold on to that guy, we're going to have to either have Caleb Williams, Michael Penix, or Jaden Daniels basically be the quarterback for the Raiders. I just don't see bringing in a guy who's kind of a journeyman quarterback to be a guy to really pilot that team on an offense that you're going to be changing pieces with, and you're going to be losing your true number one target on offense.
I mean, maybe it's time for a restart. And, Devontae is making $20+ million. It could happen.
Oh yeah, and definitely there's got to be movement moving forward with different receivers. I again, for us, I mean, I like Hunter Renfrow, but I think he's going to find himself on another team moving forward, especially with the emergence of our Trey. I think his name's Trey Tucker, our fast, speedy wide receiver from Cincinnati. I think he's going to start to emerge more as a third wide receiver for our team. He could even be that kind of, well, I don't think he's going to be a slot guy, because I think Myers or Devontae can really start to operate in the slot and have Trey Tucker outside and have him just take off. So that's the kind of stuff that I like there. But I think some of these teams too, they have to almost like reevaluate like who is a true number one wide receiver. I've been hearing things today, as much as I like what the Chiefs are doing on offense with Rashee Rice. I think truly that's the kind of guy that's going to truly develop as a two. When I think of Rashee Rice, to me, the comparable wide receiver that I first think of, that you're like, yeah, he's a really good receiver, but he's short. He's not crazy going to beat you fighting over a football with his measurables. To me, he reminds me of both a Brandon Ayuk and a Devontae Smith. And we definitely watched yesterday that Devontae Smith is a great wide receiver, but he's not a number one wide receiver. He is a truly bona fide great number two. Or look at Tampa Bay on the other side of that ball. Chris Godwin, phenomenal wide receiver, but he will never be a number one. Mike Evans is a number one receiver. Chris Godwin, Devontae Smith, Brandon Ayuk, Rashee Rice, these guys are all excellent number two wide receivers, and there's nothing wrong about that. But when you look at a true number one, you're looking for an A.J. Brown or you're looking for a Devontae Adams. You're looking for that size, that Jamar Chase kind of ability. That's what you want to see. I mean, you can go to the opposite end of the spectrum, and a Tyreek Hill is a true number one as well. But when you really want size and speed, that's what you want. You want those bigger, bona fide guys who can fight for any kind of given pass thrown their way. And when you change things up and you tell a Jacoby Myers to be a one or a Devontae Smith to be a number one receiver, it doesn't quite work out.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Speaking of guys in the playoffs, why don't we get some playoff picks going on?
Yeah, let's get some picks. And by the way, if we go back to our picks from last week, at least from the ones that I had that I was picking, we only got one game wrong, and that was that toss-up game from that Detroit-LA game. Other than that, pretty much every other game went to plan.
Yeah, I feel like people did not understand that the Packers were going to beat the Cowboys.
Yeah.
They should have jumped on the bandwagon.
Absolutely. And to me, I know there's a ton of pressure and a ton of hype against Dallas. But to me, I mean, I think Dallas is more of a work in progress than a team that is a bona fide Super Bowl threat. I think they're trending in the right direction. I like the work that's going on with them on offense and the strides they made. But there's still more work that has to be done there. And if anyone needs to be upset, it's Dan Quinn, who checked out so he can be the new head coach of the Seahawks.
See, I'm the complete opposite. I actually think they're trending downward. So they're going to need a new coach, a new defensive coordinator, probably a new offensive coordinator at some point. Uh, uh, Brandon Cooks was their big off-season acquisition. He's kind of non-existent.
Yep.
CeeDee Lamb is probably going to get a bag soon. Michael
yeah.
Parsons is going to get a bag.
Oh, yeah.
Dak Prescott's going to get more money, even though, I talk about it every year that, like, he's Chris Paul. He's a front runner.
Yes.
Like,
yes.
The guy can put up all these phenomenal stats, but they're all empty calories. Like,
I still think they're doing what Green Bay is doing with Jordan Love. I think they want another year of Dak Prescott, and then I think after next season they're going to turn it over to Trey Lance.
Maybe, but then by that point, Trey Lance is going to get paid a good amount, and
but it's going to be Jordan Love money. It's not going to be like, oh, he's a $40 million quarterback. He's going to have to prove it as well.
Right, and then, I mean, don't shoot the messenger, but he doesn't. From all accounts that have been said, he doesn't sound like he's very good. And San Francisco kind of put a lot of money and a lot of picks into him, and they got rid of him pretty fast.
Yep. And they got rid of him after injury as well.
Dallas is going to have to pay a lot of money to a lot of people in the next couple of years, and they're going to be kind of SOL at that point.
Yeah, they absolutely will. But the cool thing is, too, if they do that and they still don't see what they like out of Trey Lance, that's why now every single season moving forward, they have to draft a quarterback, either draft one or take an undrafted one. They have to start that new cycle every single season moving forward.
But the problem is that they're so infatuated with Dak and these big numbers he puts up against horrible competition that, like, I don't know, it's kind of damned if you do and if you don't kind of thing. Like,
right.
The Eagles, I can't see the Eagles being this bad again because, they were good for so long. The Giants are probably going to put something together. Like, the NFC East itself is going to be tough.
I'll tell you this. I think going into next season, it's truly realistic that the Eagles could end up being almost the worst team in all of football. I think that's truly possible going into next season. I mean, if I look at all four of those teams' rosters, the team, I just feel better about the overall rosters of all three of the other teams in that division outside of Philadelphia. And Philadelphia just lost Jason Kelce to retirement today as well. And on top of that, they have a horrendous secondary. They have guys not making tackles. Their offense has no slot receiver. Julio Jones, to me, is going to retire. I don't know what they're doing in the run game. I like DeAndre Swift, but that's becoming a mess as well. And to me, I really question, is Jalen Hurts durable? Because now this is the second straight season where by the time we hit season's end, about a month before the playoffs, his body just gives up.
Yeah. So, all right, who do you got in the AFC right now?
All right, so AFC, first game we have the Texans and the Ravens. And I think this is the game where you and I will absolutely buck heads, because I feel like this is a great matchup where, okay, we like, if Baltimore is truly the best team in the AFC, possibly the entire NFL, cool. You're going to have to show it against what I think is possibly the best quarterback in the entire NFL in CJ Stroud. I know last week we had pretty much the best quarterback win almost every single matchup. I think this is the round where some of that happens, but I think some of it doesn't happen. But this is going to be one of those games where I am going to go with who I truly think is the better quarterback. Whoever wins MVP, that's a totally different conversation. But to me, overall, just being a better quarterback outside of the games missed because of injury, I truly think that right now CJ Stroud is truly a better quarterback than Lamar Jackson. So for that, the momentum that we're seeing out of the Texans, the way that defense is going to be riled up again, I just think their head coach is doing a phenomenal job with the Texans. I like seeing the weapon that Dalton Schultz is becoming. I like seeing how Devin Singletary can deflect that attention to CJ Stroud and make a lot out of his carries. I just like seeing the options that are going on with the Texans, and I think they're a very, very tough team to play against right now. So I'm absolutely taking the Texans to pull the upset.
That's cool. So I'm not gonna go on a long thing about the Baltimore Ravens at all.
Right.
They're the number one seed.
They
They're
are.
basically the number one defense. They're a top offense. They have the MVP, and this is why I have to go against Houston. They play a lot of games in warm weather, and they played in a dome. They're
Mm-hmm.
gonna have to play out in the cold, and I don't know if CJ Stroud and his wide receivers have that in them.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great point, because even the game that they had about a month ago when they played against Cincinnati at Cincinnati, that was like a beautiful autumn day playing on a racetrack, AstroTurf. Yeah, and yes, it is a bummer that Cincinnati switched over from grass to turf. But that's the other thing. Baltimore is going to be cold. It's outside. It's grass. It is a totally different playing condition. The bona fide Monstars that they have on that Ravens defense is a totally different animal. They've lost a few guys, but again, bringing in Dalvin Cook at running back is a huge benefit to that offense. There's some great things going on there. Isaiah Likely is balling out. Zay Flowers is truly stepping up to be the best wide receiver on that team. They got some excellent things going on for them. And the great thing that you see with these great teams too is that the teams that have a great quarterback like a Lamar Jackson, they're not relying solely on that single quarterback to do it all. We see that with the Buffalo Bills, but even they are evolving in a way where they can really lean and rely on that run game. Baltimore has that run game. Baltimore has a phenomenal tight end, whether it's Isaiah Likely or Mark Andrews, to go out there and take care of business in a really good way, that it really makes it so that you set up Lamar Jackson for a way to make the most successful throws that he can make at being quarterback. And I think that really does work well for him. And if I mean, yeah, you bring up a great point. Playing outdoors in the cold on grass, that's nothing that CJ Stroud has to deal with within his own division for any of his road games. All of his road games are going to be in good weather, mild climates, and some of them are indoors. So, like when you look at the AFC, all of the best teams in that conference play in miserable weather come this time of year. They all do. Baltimore, Cincinnati, Pittsburgh, Kansas City, Buffalo, possibly the Jets or New England. Those are teams that play in horrendous weather at this time of year. So if you want to be one of the best teams in the AFC conference, you need to be able to go out in terrible, terrible weather and get a W.
Yeah. What do you got? Buffalo and
And
Kansas City.
Kansas City. So this one kind of hurts. I am definitely going to be rooting for Buffalo, but seeing kind of how that Steelers game played out and how Mason Rudolph was able to pick apart that secondary, man, I really got a bad feeling for this game. I think as much as I had Buffalo as a Super Bowl pick, I think Kansas City is going to go in there and, yeah, playing in terrible weather. They're going to feel like Buffalo is like a heat wave going into this game. But the secondary of Buffalo is really beat up. They had some guys leave that game with injury. I think Travis Kelce can work the middle of that field just as well as Mason Rudolph did with Freiermuth and not George Pickens, but the Deontay Johnson. I think this is a game that a lot of people will pick Buffalo, but just the way that Kansas City is built, and we're not even talking Isaiah Pacheco and that defense. I just think that Kansas City is going to be built in a manner that they can really pick apart this Buffalo defense.
So Kansas City's one of the best defenses in the league, and
Yep.
I mean, they're Kansas City. Patrick Mahomes has kind of had Josh Allen's number for a long time, and you know that's kind of in Allen's psyche. Like when
Yes.
you can't beat a guy, like look at last year. Was that last year or the year before where they had
2 years ago.
2 years ago? They had that complete shootout. Josh
Yep.
Allen had like the greatest game of all time, and he still lost. So like
Yes.
that, the Kansas City's coming off of a game where people were thinking they were going to get upset, and they basically dominated that game.
Yeah, and there was even a throw. Man, what was it? This Pittsburgh game, or I want to say it was the Miami game 2 weeks ago. That Josh Allen was kind of under pressure, and the very next play he does throw a touchdown pass, but for whatever reason on this play he just kind of panics, and then he really like underthrows a ball that is like not even on target and is basically like 6 feet away from getting intercepted. If the guy would have had a better read on it, he easily would have intercepted it and probably would have taken it to the house for a pick six. I do think we're going to get some questionable throws where you're right that psyche of Patrick Mahomes is in his head. I think we're going to get at least one or two bad decisions from Josh Allen. I mean, this is the kind of game that if I can bet an interception from Josh Allen, totally taking it.
I mean, he's an interception guy. I mean, like the guy
Yes.
is going to give he's going to give you one or two every game that you either have to intercept or you're going to intercept. It's going to be an obvious one. So yeah, I
Yeah.
have to go Kansas City on this one.
Yep. And I think this is the kind of game too that if he loses that turnover margin against Kansas City, I just don't think they win this game at all. I think in order for them to win the game, they have to be at least even or positive against Kansas City on the turnover margin.
Which is not easy because Mahomes does not
No,
turn the football over.
no, and
Uh,
he's gonna make those real good positive throws like we were talking about Lamar Jackson. He's gonna find a Rashi Rice or a Justin Watson or Travis Kelce just being totally unguarded in the middle of the field.
so we'll leave the best for last.
Okay,
Uh, Detroit is hosting Tampa Bay.
Yeah. So to me, I'm going to go off of what I saw in the last game. And to me, the reason that we saw Detroit have success, I don't know about you. I mean, I watched all of these playoff games. I have the NFL Plus condensed game kind of thing to really zip through these games. But of any team that played in the wild card round, I think the team that had the absolute well, Philadelphia is going to give you a run for the money, that's for sure. But outside of Philadelphia, I think the team that had the worst secondary and the worst defense that I watched was clearly the LA Rams. I thought they were horrendous in coverage. They gave up too many really good runs to David Montgomery and some really big plays to Jahmyr Gibbs. And Gibbs didn't really do that much, but he still had really explosive plays. I think Tampa Bay, their defense is going to put up way more of a fight. And I think Tampa Bay is actually going to pull away with this game.
Me too. I actually think Tampa
Yes.
Bay. So Baker Mayfield is on like legit fire.
He
Uh,
looks so poised.
yeah, and you have to. I mean, there's a reason why Tom Brady went to Tampa Bay. They have
Yes,
weapons everywhere.
they
Uh,
do.
and the
The new
defense has
guy is
always,
good.
yeah, the defense has always been good. Uh,
Yes.
like the Lions, I've said this about Detroit, uh,
They're Dallas 2.0.
Dallas, yeah, Detroit, Dallas, and Miami,
Yep.
that they literally run up the scores on bad teams, and
Yep.
good teams, they're in a struggle.
Yeah.
And I mean, they lost to Dallas, who just got boat raced.
Hammered.
Yeah. So like I'm not really feeling Detroit. Not really
Detroit
feeling
won. Detroit won the NFC North, but the best team in the NFC North is the Green Bay Packers.
yeah.
And I've felt that way since day one, and it's really showing itself to the front now. But I think you're spot on. I mean, the LA Rams had no defense, and they still were within 1 point. And you had a late hit on Matt Stafford and some weird coverage on Puka Nakua that easily could have gone LA's way, but it didn't. It was a home game for Detroit. So you got a little leniency from the refs in that manner. And it's not totally wrong, but in other environments, those calls could have been made. I mean, the hit I saw on Stafford was way worse than the hit that Josh Allen sliding to the ground, taking a hit to the shoulder, gets flagged for. And Stafford basically got his head rung, got the lights knocked out of him. I mean, I saw his eyes go back to the back of his head, and he was gone. He was literally gone for a split second, and there's no penalty on that whatsoever. So I think this is a game where we're going to see Detroit really fall back to earth. Todd Bowles notoriously knows how to stop the run, and excuse me, if they can hold off a guy like Sam Laporta, and granted, they play against a really good tight end every day in Cade Otton in practice. I think they can do that. Excuse me. And then I think the other big concern would be Amon-Ra St. Brown. Um, if they can bottle up Amon-Ra St. Brown, they take care of the ground game, they deal with Sam Laporta. I mean, it sounds weird, but I think Detroit's going to struggle to score points.
Yeah. Not I've seen it happen firsthand. Um,
Yeah,
but yeah, so I mean, I'll start off on this one just because we got this
you're
big G
representing.
on that chest.
I know.
Uh, the Packers have a great opportunity to set themselves up for the future.
Yes.
Obviously, I am in my brain taking the Green Bay Packers, and with my heart, I'm taking the Green Bay Packers. But the 49ers are just such a buzzsaw that and they're rested.
Yes.
Like if okay, if if Jordan Love outduels Brock Purdy, the
You win.
Packers have a shot at winning this game.
They do. They absolutely do. Yeah.
Because now this is one of the biggest things that, and I've been banging this drum since day one of the season. Aaron Jones is on a heater. He
Yes.
is he's got like 110 yards in 4 straight games.
Yep.
And AJ Dillon is hurt. I know
Good.
I do not congratulate people getting hurt, but he is not playing. So there's more carries for Aaron Jones. The
Yes.
dude is running like 5 to 6 yards a carry.
Yes.
Like you don't even have to throw him the ball because he is just tearing defenses up down the middle. And then look at this past game, right? Christian
Yep.
Watson comes back, has like 1 catch. Jaden Reed is like the man. I
He's
don't even
Debo
think he got a
Samuel.
catch. Huh?
Jaden Reed is your Debo Samuel.
Yeah. And he didn't even have a catch in this last game. It was like
Wow.
Bo Melton and
I don't know who that
Romeo
is.
Dobbs showed up out of nowhere. Like
Wow.
it was all over the place. Musgrave and Tucker Kraft are both playing at the same time. I know you love 12 personnel. Like
Yes.
they were putting in work.
Oh, yeah. 12 personnel is my favorite. I really want when the day comes when we have our own fantasy platform. I do want to have like these cool data analytic driven bonuses when it comes to fantasy football lineups. And to me, there's got to be something special for 12 personnel. If you do 12 personnel, like it's got to be cool. I know I actually read something a few years back where there is a guy who actually did his own kind of crazy football bonuses based on what kind of personnel packages you laid out there. And that's the thing that I really enjoy with our league that we play for fantasy is that it is like legit real life based for submitting your offensive lineup because you can put 12 personnel out there. You can put 22 personnel out there. You can put one back, one tight end, and all receivers outside of that, like you normally see. So I really like seeing that availability and that ability to really reflect what goes on in real life. So 12 personnel for me is always my favorite.
Yeah. The defense stepped up. Like it's crazy. Like, and I know I said this during the season too, that like the Packers were one of the top like 10 or so teams in points allowed. They just couldn't score more than 20 points a game. That was the
Yes.
problem. And that's why they were a 500 team. Well,
Yes.
Jordan Love and these Bo Meltons and Romeo Dobbs of the world are legit like torturing. I mean, Bo Melton was the lead receiver 2 weeks ago, and then
Yep.
he got a contract because he was the lead receiver. Like it's
Nice.
insane.
Yeah, and I think that's pretty important too. That over the last 3 weeks, Green Bay has played against really good secondaries, and I know people want to point out that San Francisco has this great elite defense, but when it comes to their secondary, it's actually average. Where they
Yeah,
really make their money is in their pass rush and stopping the run. So I think this is a kind of game where Aaron Jones is going to have to be more complimentary. And I think it's going to be all Jordan Love. This is a big Jordan Love game. The receivers, the tight end play. I'm not exactly 100% sure on how San Francisco is against the tight end. I would think it would be pretty good considering they play against George Kittle every day in practice. So I think this is a game that especially right from the get-go, if Green Bay wins that coin flip, do just like what you did in Dallas, take the ball and score immediately. You can cut that secondary up, and I think that's what has to be done is you want to put the pressure on Brock Purdy to start making those plays on offense. To me, that's where I'm a little concerned with how this game goes about because to me, I think San Francisco represents the complete opposite of what you saw from Dallas. Dallas was a team that basically only had one weapon on offense. Like, let's really call it for what it is that Jake Ferguson is nice, but their true weapon on offense is CeeDee Lamb. We look at San Francisco on offense, they have four weapons on offense. They have Christian McCaffrey, they have Debo Samuel, they have George Kittle, and they have Brandon Ayuk. That's their plethora of weapons. There's really no other team out there that has that many skillful, terrifying players on offense. The only thing I can kind of counter that is maybe Green Bay. Maybe right now they're at such an early stage, we don't know how many weapons they're on offense. We can easily make the case for two. We can easily make the case for Aaron Jones and Jaden Reed. Those guys are absolutely bona fide. They're crazy. Even a healthy Christian Watson, we saw last year, was just bananas. So if those pieces are working, we know that's at least three. Could one of these Dontavius Wicks or Bo Meltons be one? Maybe they are. Maybe one of the tight ends is a weapon. We really don't know yet. So I think you can make the case that outside quarterback, Green Bay possibly has three, whereas San Francisco has four. But when that becomes the case, then I am more concerned with Green Bay's defense than I am with San Francisco's in a way. But if Green Bay is getting those turnovers like they did against Dallas and they're locking down the secondary, we can't say necessarily the same about San Francisco. They're going to fortify the front. They're going to focus on Aaron Jones, but their secondary is definitely not as great as people think it is. And this 9.5-point spread for San Francisco to win against Green Bay, I think is totally unrealistic.
So the one thing I heard and that caught my attention that you said was about CeeDee Lamb. The Packers defensive coordinator, and I can't believe I'm going to say this out loud, schemed up CeeDee Lamb so well that like he was non-existent in the entire first half.
Yeah, until garbage time. That was when CeeDee Lamb started to produce.
Just get him right out of there. And like, and I mean, even he and Dak were like kind of arguing most of the first half, and it was like,
yes,
wow, this is something. But I don't know what. I mean, even if the Packers scheme up, Brandon Ayuk, you got CMC and Debo and George Kittle. Like, it's tough. But again, if Jordan Love can outduel Brock Purdy, they have a shot.
And to me, this game almost, if I think of a way to scheme up something against San Francisco, and I saw the game, I didn't fully get through all of it, but you probably know more about this than I do because you're definitely more in tune with the Baltimore Ravens than I am. Going back to what we saw a few weeks ago when the Ravens beat down on the 49ers, is that a style of play on both offense and defense that Green Bay can replicate?
Maybe offensively, because Lamar was kind of spreading it all over the place and not really focused on one. But defensively, Baltimore is just it's crazy. Like, I can't name too many players on their defense, but they literally are just like nasty. And the one thing I can say is like the Packers don't have nasty. They have a lot of finesse.
It's like, finesse, yeah.
Yeah. Like Jair is out there, like he can
Valentine.
Yeah. Man, Valentine is I don't know where that guy came from, but
I like him.
Yeah.
Yep.
Darnell Savage with the interception this past week, like just comes out of nowhere. Like, and I heard all these reports about the secondary was so beat up because Savage wasn't there.
Exactly.
And then he comes back and it's like, oh, I didn't even know that guy was still on the team.
Yep. Exactly. Yeah. So I think that's the thing that I really wonder about. And that's the thing that I'm really concerned about is a guy like Christian McCaffrey and Elijah Mitchell. We didn't even talk about that guy. Could that run game just absolutely gut Green Bay and then start to open up things elsewhere in that 49er offense? That's kind of what I'm concerned with. And again, too, the thing that I heard today is that basically in the second quarter of the Dallas game, Kyle Shanahan and his coaching staff, they already were beginning to scheme for Green Bay, and they didn't care at all about Dallas or any of the other teams for obvious seeding matchups. They knew halfway through the second quarter that they were going to be playing against Green Bay.
I think Dallas knew that too.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
Dallas totally knew it, and man, boy, after that second pick six, they were totally checked out.
man, well, it just that was wild. It was wild.
It,
Fun
it
to watch.
was, it was, yeah, it was fun to watch, and it was cool because the way that you and I dissected how this game would go by locking up a slot receiver with a nickel corner, and then utilizing um, your strongest component in Aaron Jones against a lackluster rush defense. That pretty much was the Achilles heel to taking down Dallas, and that's the thing when I look at these teams, especially in this round, where I think it's more of weapons against weapons, and I think the team that has more weapons is going to be more successful. And kind of like what you pointed out with Baltimore and the Texans, yeah, the Texans have CJ Stroud, and he kind of turns every wide receiver into a weapon. But if they're playing on a different kind of turf, different kind of playing elements, that's going to bring him back to planet Earth. And then if I say any other weapons that the Texans have, I don't know what I can say. But if I look at Lamar's Ravens, man, Zay Flowers, Isaiah Likely, whoever is playing running back, they're going to have three weapons in that game against the Texans. If you got to check off that box of weapons of the Ravens against weapons of the Texans, to me, the Ravens have them beat 3-0 for sure.
Yeah, and with this Packer game, like
I think it's close. I think it's 4-3.
I'm kind of glad that they're playing in San Francisco. Like
Right.
the weather should be like pretty solid. You know, it's not going to be too cold, too warm. But like if
Right.
you were playing in Green Bay right now, like it'd be like I mean we saw Patrick Mahomes shatter a helmet. So
I was watching the condensed replay, so I didn't even know about this until like 2 days later when
man,
people were talking about it. I was like, whoa, his helmet literally cracked.
yep,
That's wild.
yeah, yeah. Um,
Yeah.
I can't
That's some
remember who it was. Was it Pacheco? I think was during like he did an interview after the game. And he's like, "Oh, I'm gonna remember this game forever." Like Pat broke his helmet, and I'm just like, "Yeah, I would hope that you remember that because that was insane."
Yeah, that's some crazy stuff there. So yeah, that's wild, and to me too. When I watch Chiefs games, and I talked about this earlier, Isaiah Pacheco is tons of fun to watch. To me, he is now our current generation of Marshawn Lynch. I just love seeing the way that guy runs. I think he does great things for that offense, and I think if he has his way against the Bills, the Chiefs absolutely run away with that game.
So, I mean, we're getting close on time.
I know.
So let's see. I got Kansas City, Baltimore, uh, Tampa Bay, San Francisco, but
Yep.
I don't know. I can't remember that second NFC team that I put in there, but you know that
Oh,
one
I know.
team.
Yeah, I know. I think I'm going to have to audible. And as much as I want the Texans to win, I think really I gotta pick with my mind here. And I just have a hard time not envisioning an AFC championship of Lamar Jackson against Patrick Mahomes. I just really think that that's going to be the case. I think you brought up a phenomenal point of saying field condition plus weather is a total different ball of wax for the Houston Texans. I will be rooting for the Texans, but I think it's going to be really realistic that we're going to see a Ravens Chiefs AFC Championship game in Baltimore.
So it's like me. I'm cheering for the Packers, but
Yeah,
it probably yeah.
I know. Yeah, I'll be with you on cheering for Green Bay because I love the way that team is growing and built
Oh,
completely against the conventional means of everything else in today's NFL. So I love that
okay.
they said, let's go young and do that. But I'm
Okay.
going San Francisco. And
Humor
then with the NFC, I'm right there with you with Tampa.
humor me for a second here.
Sure.
All right. Let's just say, for giggles' sake,
Yes.
that Baltimore loses to Houston
Yes.
and the Packers somehow beat San Francisco,
Yes.
the Packers could win the Super Bowl realistically.
So this is another thing that I think is very interesting too. I think we're going to see the Super Bowl matchup basically built from two of these matchups in opposite conferences this weekend. I think the winner of the San Francisco Green Bay game represents the NFC in the Super Bowl. And I think the winner of the Ravens Texans game represents the AFC in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
That I firmly believe.
I can go with that.
Yes.
I can go with that.
So when it comes to what we thought with our theory of round one of the wild card playoffs, of saying how the better quarterback is really the cream that rises to the top in these matchups. I mean, I don't know if you're there with me, but I think the two best quarterbacks in the NFL right now are CJ Stroud and Jordan Love. I think we have a real potential that could be the Super Bowl. That could be a CJ Stroud, Jordan Love Super Bowl, and that would be bananas. It would be absolutely bananas. I mean, in a way, it's almost like the Green Bay Dallas matchup that we just had. And I heard the ratings of the Green Bay Dallas game were bananas. Like, you're talking 40 plus million in a blowout. Okay, cool. Let's bring the other team from Texas that has a better team and a better quarterback against Jordan Love. I think you're looking at probably the highest rated Super Bowl possibly ever if you have a Texans-Packers Super Bowl.
Oh, you're killing me. Like,
I know.
So I've been thinking about this all day.
Nice.
And like throughout the weekend after we beat Dallas.
Yep.
And I go, okay, we're playing San Francisco. Well, we beat the Lions pretty easily
Yep.
a couple weeks, about a month ago.
Yep.
Tampa kind of put a slacking on us. So
that's a scary team.
I don't see that happening twice. Like Baker Mayfield basically was perfect.
Yes.
Like, and don't get me wrong, he's been playing really well.
Yep.
But we could beat them.
You can beat Tampa. You can definitely beat Tampa. I think there's more cracks in the armor with a San Francisco and a Detroit than there is Tampa, to be honest.
And so then I started thinking AFC, right? And I go, Buffalo. Well, the Packers don't give the ball away. So if they win the turnover battle against Buffalo, they could beat Buffalo.
Yes. You're just a better team than the Chiefs, to be honest.
Kansas City, right. Kansas City they run the ball, but they're not a running team. And
also, they score like one touchdown a game. I mean, let's be honest. They score one touchdown a game.
And the Packers are really good against the pass. They're just not very good against the run.
Yeah.
So then I go to Houston, and I go, kind of the same thing. Houston doesn't really have like a go-to wide receiver. I mean,
they're all good.
Yeah, they're
like Green Bay receivers.
Right. And so I'm like, the Packers are okay in the secondary. They're not good against the run, and Houston's not big on running the football.
Yeah, I think right there, both the Texans and Green Bay are almost like identical clones of each other. But I think Green Bay is just a little bit better on defense than the Texans are.
They are. And so then I go, Baltimore is still scary.
Yes.
So if we could somehow get past San Francisco, there's a shot. There's a shot.
Yeah, there is a shot. And the thing is, too, when it comes to the AFC, is that those teams are far more familiar with Lamar Jackson than the NFC teams are. I mean, they absolutely cleaned house on almost everyone in the NFC. That the Rams actually gave them a run for the money. But there were plenty of games this year where Lamar Jackson just looked like they really didn't have much competition. But in years past, we've seen how the LA Chargers and how the Tennessee Titans have actually played fairly well against the Ravens and knocked Lamar out of the playoffs. I just look at this now and I think, boy, those three remaining teams outside of Baltimore in the AFC, like they're all like really defensively minded, really well coached teams that they know Lamar Jackson. They know the script. Houston's going to be the team least familiar with him because they're the youngest team. Again, field conditions, playing conditions are going to definitely be adverse against them. But a team like Buffalo, like they could do it. We'll see what happens with that linebacker core. But I mean, man, you put a Kansas City against a Baltimore. That Steve Spagnuolo defense is a different animal.
Yeah, I agree. What do you think? Are we should we call it a show?
We're calling it a show, man. That's no debate. I say we get the video game up here, bust out the belts, and that's no debate.
Where are we here?
Yeah, where are we? I think we're in a bunker in a basement.
We are on to a new era.
Whoa.
Let's start off with the Super Nintendo Game Genie.
Game Genie. I don't even know what this is.
So back in the day, you couldn't put cheat codes into games. Like, well, no, I take that back.
Okay.
There wasn't really like nowadays you can put in like input, like there was a Konami code and stuff like that. Well,
Yeah.
you would put this Game Genie on, and then you would put your game. Wait, hold on, let me grab something.
Okay.
You could put your game in it like this, boom, and create like this thing came with codes, like a code book, and you could literally like put cheats into the game up here.
Wow, that's like reverse engineering a video game. That's cool.
Yeah, that is literally what it was. You could just like completely just rig the system and cheat a lot.
I love it, man. That's right there. That's no debate. That's how you stack the deck of your cheat codes to make that game work the way you want it to. So that's pretty dope stuff right there. I originally had a different color scheme kind of planned out for today, but then you go outside a little bit. The weather gets colder, and you ditch the short sleeve, and you got to go long sleeve. Plus, being in the basement tonight, it is ice cold, and even though we got some heat, it's cold outside, man, and it translates to inside the house. So the belt that I got, plus with some of the coaching carousel moves, Scooby Doo.
Oh, Scooby Doo! All right,
Scooby Doo.
I was real close. I was in there.
Nice. Yep. Yeah, we wanted to go the blue route. Had a different color scheme. I'll save that for another day because I don't want to spoil the viewers and what they're conniving and whatnot. So we'll save it for another day. But that's how we were going. We were thinking Scooby Doo for today's show. So there you go, man. So I think that's what we got. We got a good show today. Got some more work coming up and doing things in the future. So for myself, Steve Metrics, and over there, that's your boy,
DJ TRIGGS.
And together we are No Debate Sports, and that's No Debate.